We're going to have very soon the Office of Special Plans, some new unit set up by the neocons to begin agitating. It may be Wikileaks. If we look at the Wikileaks document dump, and if we look at the strange figure of Julian Assange, this bloodless, emotionless, psychologically very unusual specimen that's paraded now in the world media with a big attempt to build him up as an anti-authoritarian culture hero for this horrendous cybernetic world of alienated youth. The underlying map is this. The basic thesis that comes out of a kind of a review of all of the material written about this and what I know so far that's in it, the main lessons of the WikiLeaks are Pakistan is bad. Pakistan is your deadly enemy. You've got to do something about Pakistan. Second only to Pakistan as a deadly enemy is Iran. Both of these countries are in Afghanistan. They're betraying the U.S. They're killing the U.S. forces. They're making victory impossible. This is absolutely intolerable. This has to come to an end. And then, of course, the war in Afghanistan is a failure. Therefore, the unspoken but implied thesis of the WikiLeaks document dump is that it's time to end the war in Afghanistan and transfer the war to Pakistan and or Iran. Now, this is the lift and shift. This is therefore a very sinister operation. We see that the one constant from the Pentagon Papers in 1971 to the situation today is the stubborn stupidity of the left liberals, their gullibility, their hysteria, their herd instinct, their inability to look at the way things actually work. No cognizione per causas. They just can't understand things by their causes. Now to the WikiLeaks departments. Okay, what do we have? All these tens of thousands of documents. What are they? This is low-level cable traffic. This is either official use only, or confidential, or at most secret. And if it's secret, it's probably over-classified. There's nothing top secret, nothing with code words, nothing cosmic, nothing NATO, nothing no foreign. There's none of the top-level stuff. It's essentially the plotting details of massacre and genocide. Notice how it's put out with the New York Times, the London Guardian, and Der Spiegel of Hamburg, Germany. Now, anybody who knows anything about 9/11 truth knows that when you have a thesis that the government, the financier establishment, does not want to get out in public, you don't get it in the New York Times. They do not cooperate with you. They do not publish their own version of the raw data that you have. New York Times, Guardian, Spiegel come into the picture when it's something that this transatlantic U.S.-British intelligence community wants. The New York Times, the organ of the financial community and the intelligence community to a large degree. Guardian, the left wing of MI6. Spiegel, interesting question. The House organ of the British occupation zone in Germany after 1945 with Rudolf Augstein. They had a cover story 4 or 5 years ago. Conspiracy fanatics turn the world on its head. This was against Gerhard Wisniewski, Andreas von Bülow, Matthias Brückers, the three main 9/11 truth authors in Germany. So that's how they treat things that the regime does not want. But in this case, they're delighted to put it in. The Guardian is clearest. Their two principal articles explaining what's in the WikiLeaks are, first of all, Pakistan betrays the U.S. Secondly, Iran, in another article, has this huge presence in the part of Afghanistan along their border. The WikiLeaks is not an anti-war organization. We have quotes from Assange where he says, we have no view. WikiLeaks as such has no view about whether there should be a war going on or not. But we just want the war to be humane. If it is going on, it's got to be humane. Notice there's also no idea content in this. There's no analysis. There's nothing about imperialism or world domination, the role of the banks. There's not even the cruder terminology about, say, a new world order. That would be a step up for somebody like Assange. He just doesn't have it. So The stuff has all been edited. It's highly selected, highly slanted in the ideas that are in it. We've got Osama bin Laden is treated as a real person in this stuff. Osama bin Laden attending the Quetta Shura. So looks like it's supporting the 9/11 myth, and explicitly that is what Assange does. Or Assange hates 9/11 truth. He finds it annoying. We'll be back in a minute. So if you want to know who Julian Assange is, for a lot of people it will be enough to know that he rejects totally 9/11 truth. He doesn't like it. He says, those people annoy me. So Assange is essentially an enemy of 9/11 truth. And what he's really saying is that the only scandals, the only conspiracies that are allowed, that can be brought into the polite discussion of these geeks and dehumanized characters of his own ilk, are the conspiracies that he approves, that have been vetted by his crew of international hackers and related characters. Now, we look at Wikileaks. We see an organization quite evidently in the orbit of the Open Society Institute, generally of the Soros body of opinion in the world. The question I would have to Assange is, who pays you? We're told that you live the life of a nomad, that you go across the world living out of a backpack. You show up in airports all over the place. Who pays for this, Julian Assange? Who funds you? Where's the money coming from? Watergate, listen, follow the money. I want to know who pays Assange. It's a very elementary question. How do you get money to buy these expensive tickets? Now, if we look at the board of this foundation, the WikiLeaks board of directors, who do we find? Ben Laurie, former top security official of Google. Well, we know that Google comes out of a project funded by In-Q-Tel, the proprietary, launched into the world by the CIA, to keep the U.S. intelligence community at the cutting edge of information technology. We also know that Google, in the meantime, has now practically merged with the National Security Agency. The ties were always close, quite evidently. The sabotage and censorship was always there. Again, 9/11 truth, the best way to gauge this. There's a real scandal where real journalism would have been needed. Assange is not interested. He's hostile. He's a ferocious enemy of 9/11 truth who's parading himself as an enemy of the establishment, and we're supposed to believe that his life is in danger. Assange can give open press conferences in London, and nothing happens to him. Nobody lays a glove on him. It's also clear if the U.S., if the Pentagon wanted to destroy Assange's websites, they could do this within an hour, given the hacking techniques that they have on their side. They don't do it. There's not even a legal attempt. There's no legal action to try to stop this. There's just nothing done. So, Ben Laurie is one. We look at this guy, Wang Dan. The rest of the board is largely Chinese. As a matter of fact, when this thing first came on the scene, it was largely thought to be something targeting China. In other words, it was going to put out revelations that would be embarrassing to the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party leadership. Wang Dan is a Project Democracy operative, National Endowment for Democracy. We've also got Xiao Chang. Xiao Chang is the International Committee for Tibet. In other words, he's a big fan of the Dalai Lama, that darling of rich elitists and mystics and intelligence spooks across the Western world. Xiao Chang operates at UC Berkeley. He seems to be part of Radio Free Asia, which is linked to Soros. We've also got this guy on the board, Kam Sit-sang, who is a Tibetan democracy activist. Well, we know what this all amounts to. It's a gaggle of so-called democracy activists, all in the orbit of the U.S. intelligence community, and especially of the Soros wing thereof. And they operate under left cover. This is the indispensable thing. They have to have this Rousseauvian overtone that they're anti-authoritarian and they're fighting big government, I guess you can say. What this is, we must go back to Cass Sunstein. the current czar for information regulation. Imagine that, information regulation in the Obama White House. Sunstein said a while ago that you've got to suppress conspiracy theorists and 9/11 truth activists on the Internet, and the way you've got to do indirectly by cognitive disruption and cognitive countermeasures. Now, that's not going to be a cigar-chomping right-wing character saying that 9/11 truth is for traitors. It's going to be something like this. It's going to be something that pushes the 9/11 agenda and any other things to the side and puts in the center the things that the CIA and the intelligence community want to be there, which again is why the Afghan war is hopeless and why we've now got to turn our attention to Iran. The line of Wikileaks is that whatever happens has to be done with transparency. Well, we're interested in transparency in regard to Wikileaks. I guess that's the line that we have here, and indeed everything else. Let's look a little bit at Assange as a person. Notice this strange emotional complex that he seems to have. Again, bloodless, emotionless, frozen in many ways. What's his background? Well, according to the New York Times, Wikipedia, others, he lived the life of a nomad even before he became a computer hacker in the 1990s. He grew up with parents who were part of a touring theater company. Sounds a little bit like Molière, but always moving around, attending 37 schools during the time that he was growing up. And in particular, his mother, Assange's mother, had a second husband who was some kind of a dangerous brute. And we're told in Wikipedia that Assange grew up on the run from the father of his half-brother, who was a member of the Anne Hamilton Byrne cult of Melbourne, Australia. What was the Anne Hamilton Byrne cult? Well, again, according to the Wikipedia article on that, the Anne Hamilton Byrne cult, it was a cult which used LSD and a whole array of psychopharmaca on little children. In other words, systematic child abuse through psychopharmaceutical means. Children were administered LSD and other psychopharmaca. They were then left alone in a dark room. I think the emotional complexion that you see with Assange might be coherent with somebody who got LSD at an early age and was left alone in a dark room. Who knows? He should speak up on this issue if he wants to be transparent. Let's have some transparency if that's the goal in life, right? I think the goals are actually, there are other goals that might be more important than transparency. But in his case, he says it, so you want to live by it. He is a picaresque agent in that sense, constantly moving through the landscape. My question to him again, who pays you? He is the co-author, the researcher of something called Underground Tales of Hacking, that is Obsession and Madness. Now, interestingly, you can get that on the internet. I don't recommend it. I've started to look at it. It's called Underground Tales of Hacking, Obsession and Madness. 400 to 500 page book, published in Australia in 1997, translated interestingly into Russian and into Chinese. But you can read it in the original English. In this, he appears in the guise of a character called Mendax. Mendax, just a Latin word meaning a liar. So his self-image is that of a liar. Interesting.